Greetings and welcome back, everyone. This is Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett, here as always with Kyle, and joining us for the first time ever, very special guest today. You may know him from Heroes of the Dorm, you may know him from HDC, you may know him as the owner of 30K. I'm probably forgetting an accolade or two. Michael Udall, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on. I mean, I've watched a couple of your guys' episodes. Really like the one with Cav Guest. If you haven't checked it out, I mean, Cav Guest is someone that's awesome. You definitely should. But thanks for having me, man. I'm just excited to talk about some Heroes of the Storm, excited to talk about some CCL. I mean, HOTS is my life, so any opportunity to talk about it is a good opportunity.
Well, awesome. we're thrilled to have you, because this week would have been probably me mostly talking about, first ban Tychus and having to play nothing but Johanna. So really, you're saving the listeners from that ordeal.
Yeah, I mean, the meta, I'm so excited for the patch. Like, I'm so excited for that to come out. But I mean, I feel like the meta's just gotten a bit stale in HOTS for me, because it's like every single game is a Tychus, every single game is a Johanna, every single game is a Diablo. And I'm ready for something new.
Yeah, I mean, this is the longest we've gone without, like, some sort of upset to the meta in a while. And we are, to a certain degree, I feel like, used to that, because there's always that long holiday break. But this one in particular seemed much longer, with the lack of the holiday event and everything. It just, I feel like, put a bigger spotlight on the fact that the game's kind of solved at the moment, it feels like.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely feel like, I feel like the meta's pretty well balanced, in the sense that, I mean, you look at CCL and all kinds of different heroes are played. Like, it feels like every team kind of has their own distinct meta, which is cool, right? Like, I feel like old HGC competitive Heroes of the Storm didn't have that. So that's something that I've been, enjoying. Like, you see Gazlo's played, we saw Butcher earlier in the season. It's like, there are a lot more heroes that are competitively viable, which is a cool thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the home game? Just Storm League. Are you happy with the meta kind of in your pickup games?
I mean, Hogger, I think, is a little bit busted. If Hogger ever gets through, I feel like that's pretty difficult. Like Tychus as well. Like you mentioned, Kyle, I feel like that hero is just really, really good. But it's just, once you play the same patch for a little bit, like at some point, I just want new change, because I just feel like it'll switch up what heroes are played. So it's not that the meta is terrible. It's just we've been on the same meta for a while.
Kyle always talks about how he enjoys the puzzle of a new patch, kind of whether or not, I mean, Kyle, you always seem to be the champion of positivity, but you always talk about how, whether things you got dinged or not, you kind of just enjoy a new puzzle. Do you find you fall into that kind of category too, Michael?
The puzzle? Yeah, it's kind of fun to be who will figure it out first. Right. It's that puzzle analogy is who finishes first. Because once you really figure out that a hero's OP, I don't know. I've always been such a ladder grinder where I'm always kind of going for rank 1. So it's once I find my one little broken niche hero, that's all I play until people figure out how to beat it. So I don't necessarily figure out the whole puzzle. I just figure out my one melee or ranged assassin and then kind of just run with that.
I like it. I mean, you back in the day, there's many backs in the days we could ride here, but I remember being extremely impressed by your climb to Grandmaster, because you basically said, I'm not gonna, orchestrate this draft in an extreme way. I'm not gonna do anything that's gonna blow people's minds. But what you did blow people's minds with is you got in the chat and you shot called random people and got them behind you, cheerleaded them the whole way. And that was such a cool positive spin on climbing.
Yeah. That moment still feels surreal. So basically, I got 30K rank points, right? So that's where the organization name 30K came from. That's the origin of it. And exactly what you said, Kyle, I would hop in voice comms because it was the season that Blizzard had just implemented voice comms into the game. So we'd basically everyone in the high MMR knew that if you played on my team, I would be in voice comms. And if you wanted to listen, I was going to shot call and do stuff. And this is when I was in my pro time. So I was pretty good. And it just became this fun thing where every single time I loaded into game, all 5 of my players would be in comms and they would just be ready. And we would have a good time. And I would do really high level shot calling where I'd kind of tell everyone where to rotate. And like you said, I'd be the biggest cheerleader, because I've always said the best way, the number one thing if you're looking to game MMR is PMA, positive mental attitude. because the second that you and your teammates start going at it, where you're, you know, typing back and forth of like, you made this mistake, and then they say you made this mistake, you've already lost, because at that point you're spending time, instead of focusing on how can you win and how can you, you know, basically beat the other team, you're spending that on, hey, it's your fault we're losing, you know, and it's like, it's just, you're putting your energy in the wrong place. So I'm just like a big advocate for that I think like we just need more positivity within gaming, because I think it'll make us all better players, and I think it'll make us have a better, like, enjoyable experience. Do you guys feel like that way? I don't know, like, what are your guys' thoughts about, I mean, like, I still rage and tilt out, but like, you know, because it's like the way of MOBAs, but I don't know, do you guys find that when you do PMA it like helps you win more?
Definitely, like, without a doubt. And like, there's like, I think like there's a bit of a social engineering bend to what you did there, like being able to get everyone on comms and actually talk together. Cause like I don't have that experience. Like, if people don't recognize my name as much, they're not like, yeah, this dude's on our team, let's all get in comms. But when it does happen, like, I'm trying to think of a negative experience I've had on comms, and I just can't really pull one from memory. So I don't know what it has to say about it, but I feel like, at least in my anecdotal experience, when everyone kind of decides they feel like talking, everyone's kind of on board to come up with a plan, and they're receptive to direction.
My contribution to positivity is often to stay perfectly quiet, but I'm also the tank the majority of the time, which means if I'm dying in the early game, I am loading up that back. Just everyone's piling on me, complaining about me, but I'm like, fanaticism's coming, guys. Like, we're gonna be okay. Blessed Shield's gonna hit somebody important, don't you worry. But this early game is gonna be rough.
I have empathy for you as a tank player too, because a lot of times if you die, it's like saving your teammates. Right, it's like, hey, I'm playing up in like aggressive position so that my damage dealers can trade damage, and if they're not there to follow up or help you out, it's like, it looks like you're making a mistake even if you're playing right. Like, I don't know, I have a lot of empathy for tank players, because I feel like it'd have to be hard. Like, tanks really shine when everyone's on the same page, right? When like you slide and everyone's there to follow up is really when tanks like have the best time of it, which is part of why it's fun to like duo queue. I don't know, do you experience that with like when you play with people, that if you're on comms together, Kyle, that your tank feels more impactful?
Oh yeah. When possible. The other big difference, and actually, I believe you casted one of our games in the Heroes Lounge recently. This was maybe 3 months ago, but that's an interesting puzzle, because there we have Cavalier Guest. Yeah. But he's off in another world. He's off lane for us. So his knowledgeable contributions are unseen by what's going actually on. So yeah. it can be great information, but we're like, no, that's not what's happening down here. We got Porky, who's engaging high level style. Yeah. And I'm trying to catch up to what he's doing while I manage Gold League and Plat. And it can be not the same page at all, for sure.
That's fun though. I mean, I remember I cast those games and it was a good time. I mean, like thanks for having me. Like I've been just loving, because I kind of took a bit of a break from Heroes of the Storm. Sure. To go, like, you know, like I took some time off, and I've just been getting back into it this year. And it's only been, well, last year and like summer of last year. And it's just been so fun to be involved in the community again and just see all the amazing tournaments that are going on, right? Like NGS, Heroes Lounge, and just being able to watch them and just see that there's high level, fun, competitive Heroes of the Storm going on. I just love the HOTS community. This is me just being wholesome. I'm not going anywhere with this. I'm just rambling. I just love the HOTS community. I just wanted to express that, you know?
No, that's fabulous, though. That's fabulous. Because you came back. CCL fired up real quick, is already approaching the end, which seems bizarre because it seemed like it was going to last forever. 10 weeks. It was so far away. This will be the thing of permanency. And now we're all wondering what's going to happen with the second one. What's the plans now? What's going on? That's not your place to answer, though, because you might know something and you're not allowed to say. We're aware of that.
Going into guarded facial expressions. Yeah, no, you're good. We're not trying to corner you.
Oh no, I know you guys aren't trying to get leaks. I just said more of like, I mean, we haven't, like, we're not 100%. Well, CCL season 1 has been a huge success. I think everyone views it and is like, hey, this exceeded expectations in a lot of ways. So I think because of that, we can assume that, you know, if things go well with basically Blizzard, like the conversation with Blizzard, because any tournament that you throw within Heroes of the Storm that's over $10,000, you have to get a special license with Blizzard. So since CCL has a prize pool that's above that, they have to get a special license. So I think assuming we can get like that conversation goes okay, I think we can assume that there'll probably be a season 2. At least that's the boat I'm in. I mean, I don't know 100%, but I feel like season 1 has been a huge success, and I would love to see like a season 2 or maybe even a season 3. I mean, how cool would that be? 2 seasons, and this isn't confirmed. This is more just Michael daydreaming and talking about what I hope can be, because I really think there's so much potential here for Heroes of the Storm esports. And we saw it with HGC. We saw that there was a lot of interest, and I feel like Blizzard, if they had done a couple of things a little bit better, like specifically, I feel like they weren't that good around showing content around players, right? Like I feel like they'd have these really, really amazing large live events that everyone, like when you went to, it was like, wow, this is so awesome. But I felt like they didn't give you that much of a deep dive into why you should care about the players. And here's the thing, I was one of the players that benefited a lot, right? Like with Heroes of the Storm, they had a lot of content, but I feel like for HGC, they didn't have that as much. And I feel like to have a successful esports scene, you need to really focus on the players and kind of building storylines. Because at the end of the day, it's entertainment. And the reason people watch, any entertainment league, the NBA, the NFL, is because of the players and because of the storylines that you kind of get invested in.
Yeah, we did a short little like kind of prompter last week of that exact thing, because now that we're to the playoffs, like it's really easy to kind of draw those connections and find those storylines. And so our thing that we did on the show last week, it was like a quick 10-minute bit, which is like we literally just called it Why You Should Care. And it was just talking about the legacy of all of these players on these rosters and how they connect to, connected back to either Dorm or HGC, or even in some cases like StarCraft 2 and Warcraft 3 esports.
It may be too like deep or philosophical, but do you think that maybe they struggled with that content because they couldn't make the same thing as in other MOBAs? Because there you have like star super Michael Jordan carries, and rarely will they say, and this guy who drops wards in the bushes right here, this guy right here, he's been around for 10 years. And I remember like, ooh, moving back to our carries. It's like, well, no. The guy with the wards, he is really, really important. He's a staple. He's carrying that team through information. And when you get to heroes, every single role matters. Falstad can't do the things that Falstad can do without every other healer and support and offlane backing him up.
Yeah, no, I think you're really onto something there, Kyle, because fundamentally, the way that the game Heroes of the Storm is set up is not as conducive to basically creating these superstars, right? It's not like a CSGO where someone can literally 1v5, or late game League of Legends where someone can 1v3. It's like in HOTS, it's very difficult to have a 1v2, right? Because of the way the game is balanced with the XP and everyone kind of having their stats being so similar, since you're not using gold and items as basically like your power mechanic. So I think you're really onto something there, where it's like it's hard to create storylines, but that doesn't mean that you can't, because I think one of the greatest storylines that was like overlooked that they could have talked about is shot calling, captaining, and leading a team. Because I think that is really, when you look at a lot of the highest level HGC teams, a lot of them had a strong leader and a strong kind of captain, someone like a Wubby, someone like Rich. And maybe giving more insight into like, what are the actual communications like in game? Because a lot of times a play may happen 5 or 10 seconds before you see it on broadcast, right? Because someone will call out, hey, they're going to rotate here. And it's kind of like you're playing chess where you're trying to predict where the opponent is. And I think if you did a better job at kind of like highlighting like the communication, and then you show the play happening 5 seconds later, I think that would do a good job of being like, hey guys, these players are good because they're playing in advance. Just like, at least for me, I think that's something that would be engaging and maybe would make superstars.
No, and that's really interesting, because there is such a difference too in CCL teams and how they shot call. We have some democracies or republics where everybody contributes a little bit, and then maybe a president decides. And then you have these really intense groups like what Justing runs, which is Galaxy Brain. Everything goes in his head and he makes all the decisions throughout the entire draft and game himself.
Well, that kind of ties into what we started talking about, which is just you climbing to Grandmaster, and you called yourself a cheerleader, but at the same time too, like that's kind of a really good example of how much a singular vision for a strategy can pay off.
Well, and having 5 people on the same page, if they're executing, even if they're making the wrong plan, they have a better chance than a team that has 4 people on the same page and 1 person not on the same page. Because, And I don't know if that sounds odd, but it's like, as long as everyone has that same, they're all doing what the galaxy brain wants them to do, there's like cohesion to the way that they're moving. And if everyone's kind of doing their own thing, that can work if they have done like a lot of VOD review where they've discussed what their general game plan as a team. Does that make sense? Like, it takes a lot of effort, I think, out of game to make that kind of shot calling work. Whereas if you have just kind of one person inputting all the information and then telling everyone where to go, and kind of like, they're playing the mini map is actually what they're doing, because it so much comes down to fog of war of basically like you're trying to predict where the opponent will move at like the highest level. It really just comes down to like vision and vision control. So I think Justin is probably the best player in CCL. I'll say it right now. I think he is such a monster, and especially for what he does on like the shot calling stage and the drafting stage, I think that there are very few, if any, players that bring to a team what he does.
Fascinating, like to think about all of that, and like the way we bounced around, the coordinated play of CCL, but also how this all ties back into even things you can and change you can bring into your at-home game. It's all comes back.
Gaming's fun and interesting.
Yeah.
Well, when you play with friends, you probably feel it too, right? Where it's like, if you're talking to each other and communicating about where you're at, it's like your team just has a better chance to win than if you're not. And
yeah.
Do you feel like
it makes games more fun?
Are there any tools you feel like are missing from the game that could greatly increase that camaraderie or feel of teamwork?
So something that I really like about Dota 2 is on the minimap, you can draw arrows, and you can actually draw on it instead of just pings. And I think that would be a great change to Heroes of the Storm, because the game is so much about rotations. And if you could draw an arrow, basically like, imagine your mid lane on Dragonshire, you draw an arrow up to top lane, you're letting your top laner know, I'm coming for a gank, right? It's like, whereas if you ping, the ping could be interpreted as, I need to play careful because they're coming to gank me, or it could be interpreted as I'm coming up there. So it's like, I just think it would provide more flexibility with the ability to communicate.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if it could be as clear, because Dota, of course, you've got like legacy, years and years of pink is on one side of the team. Pink is always on Dire. It's been a while. Yeah. And when you see a pink arrow, your brain goes, of course, pink, Banshee, she's coming this way. But in Heroes, I guess if we'd have one color, we'd have blue or red, and you wouldn't see red. So you're not sure who would be on their way.
Oh, that's a good point. That's interesting, but still, I feel like it would help a lot. I'd like to see
totally,
that.
totally.
I forgot that you could do that in Dota, but I
mean, it was mostly used for, drawing, I'll say smiley faces. We'll go with smiley faces.
Smiley face. Oh, okay. All right. That's what you're going to go with.
It was definitely abused. That's for sure. But I do think it has potential to be really good and beneficial.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Well, before we're going to talk about the big tease for next week, and then kind of get into the meat of the show and take some questions for you, Udall. But before we do that, we want to thank our listeners and thank our patrons that support us over at patreon.com/ITN, because that's how you can support this show, and we really appreciate it. And we have some new patrons since last episode, so thank you to David Schenkels and Kyle Kaplan. Another Kyle in the mix, Kyle.
Nice.
So thank you.
No competition. We're all good.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the support. And if you like the show, you want to support us, you want to get access to our Discord and some other perks like our monthly game nights, head on over to patreon.com/ITN. But let's keep the show going with this week's Heroes of the Storm news.
We're on, boys! Ha-ha! Let's liven up this place!
Put me to the stage.
Stay a while and listen.
I've already made quick mention of it, but in case you haven't seen it or are unaware, Blizz Warner has gotten on Reddit this week and informed that a patch is coming next week that will touch 22 heroes, in D Warner's words. So that is a sizable balance patch.
So we got Hogger. We want to see maybe something happen with Tychus. But what would be on your list, Michael?
I think I'd like to see them change Diablo a little bit. I mean, I always I just think Diablo does a little bit too much damage late game. With his 13-16, he can just one-shot backliners from a pretty far away with a point click. So maybe, I know they tuned it down a little bit, but maybe if they tuned it down a little bit more, but I also am a range player, so I'm biased. I always want tanks to be less strong so I don't die as much.
What was it like coming back during the Medallion days all of a sudden?
I thought Medallion was really nice. I mean, the ability to kind of have a get out of jail free card was something that I really liked. That being said, I am happy that they removed it because I think it made the game really not as playable or not as enjoyable for a lot or other roles such as tanks and maybe offlaners as well. I mean, as a tank player, did you like Medallion?
No. But mainly the lasting effect of Medallion is the wear and tear on my skills. I'm still struggling to regain my Diablo APOC combo because I spent a whole season with it being completely off the table.
Yeah, where you'd click R, Q them, and then they just Medallion and run away.
The charge, I'd sort of bump into them and nothing would happen. You go, oh, I guess I'm now here. And now I'm very exposed and I'm going to die in this new location.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if maybe since there are so many heroes being changed here, maybe that's them adapting to having removed Medallion, right? Maybe this is them tweaking CCs a little bit, maybe making CC a little bit shorter, because I could see something like that where maybe they feel like the game has swung too far to CC chains. I haven't necessarily seen that, but this is a lot of heroes changed. I don't remember a patch that had this many heroes changed.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. If it's more, because we've seen a movement speed change without sweeping changes. Weather came and went. Buildings upgraded with armor decrease, lost a little bit of that power, gained back, lost a little bit. Wells have been changed. So I wonder if the state of the game overall has shifted so greatly that we're going to see those minor tweaks across everybody.
Maybe, right? Because it's something we do on the show when the patch comes through is obviously you have your buffs and your nerfs, but you also have your underpicked talent adjustments, and those are always so hard to even kind of make a call on when they're first changed. It's I don't know, 2% of the population was even trying out this talent in the first place. So you have stuff like that as well. And you also have it could touch 22 heroes, but maybe 10 of those, it could be one thing was changed. They're just adding a little health or maybe taking a little basic attack damage away or something. Because sometimes we do get minor changes like that as well. Even though sometimes they're really exciting. You throw a little more health on an Uberak and suddenly everyone's bringing out the Beatles.
Yeah, no, that's a good thing to know. Maybe it is some sort of HP changing and tuning. Because I think that is something we've seen a decent amount in the past as well of base HP, maybe adding 100, maybe 150. I love quest talents. So whenever they add more quest talents, that's something that I generally am in favor for. I think it's just a fun mechanic within the game to have a game within a game. So I would love, or I'm hoping that some of these changes are going to be quest talents.
I like where they've ended up. We on this show, when quests first kind of hit the scene, we were kind of at war with them. We're you're overdoing this and you're forcing this a little too much. But I think they've learned a lot about how to design quest talents because I think they've just become so much more healthy.
If I was to take some bets, I would definitely put some money on Dahaka getting a bit of an upgrade and move around. He has sort of wasted on the wayside, particularly due to these really chaotic bruisers like Diva rework. You got your Gazlos now. There's a lot of bruisers that just bring more team fight to the table than one drag from a Dahaka, even though race car is still great. And I know a lot of Dahakas and I fear them. But I'm curious if Medivh will get touched because we're looking at bottom of the barrel, second from the bottom above Genji win rate in Storm League, but a constant representation. And throughout the entire CCL draft, there was a strategy of making sure you had basically 2 Medivh players so you could pull it off if need be.
Yeah, I mean, Medivh is a tricky one, right? Because I think it's a really difficult hero to balance that doesn't basically be broken in competitive and can be good in Storm League. Because just the way the hero's kit's set up, it's got such a high skill ceiling with, in high level coordinated play, the portal ability suddenly unlocks so many plays. And in, Storm League, people don't take portals. So it's you're basically just down one ability. And I think it's unless they change Portal to maybe be something different, I don't think we're necessarily going to see that hero have like an increased win rate in Storm League. And I also don't know if I'd like them to change it. Like, I think Medivh is a pretty unique hero. Like, maybe tweak his numbers a little bit so that he can actually see more play within CCL. But he's a hero that has a really high skills cap. And I like heroes that are that way, right? Where if you have a player that's really, really good, he can kind of become, or they can become that superstar, right? Where you know, they can shine on that hero and basically show why they're so much better than every other player.
In a very unique way, too, with someone like Medivh, right? Like the way that we, like, talking from a spectator's perspective now, if you're watching Heroes of the Storm and you're watching a good Medivh, the reasons you're impressed and you're picking up on the prowess of the player behind Medivh is so different from any other hero. It's not like he's getting, like, I mean, he could be getting sick kills, but the just, you know, these clutch saves with the shield and the insanity that portals allow it's just no other hero brings that to the table in that way. You know. What about, are there any heroes that you're hoping are protected? That anything on your roster you're just like, please don't come for this hero?
I mean, Rexxar, because I have the best Rexxar player in CCL. Okay. I got Hasuwabs, you know. I mean, I like Rexxar. I think he's in a really good spot. And I feel like Rexxar for a long time was not very good. So it's like, I would be sad if we saw Rexxar nerfs, even though the hero is like really strong in the solo lane. Like, let Rexxar have his moment in the sun, you know?
You're officially invited back whenever you want to come back on the show. I've been fearing a major Rexxar nerf for like over a year now. I almost one-tricked him through 2020.
He's so good. He's so good. I think Rexxar is like a really slept-on hero, especially if you're good at him, which, I mean, if you've been one-tricking him, Garrett, you're probably wrecking those ranks. I mean, because you have a stun that's like super safe. You have a lot of damage once you hit like level 7, level 13. Like, boars are really impactful. Good level 20 upgrade. I love Rexxar. I think that hero's amazing.
Yeah, anyone who listens to the show regularly, they don't need to hear my thoughts on Rexxar. They've heard enough of them. But I'm glad to hear you say that.
What about someone who hasn't gotten much play in the old CCL, but an old favorite, Illidan? Is there anything that can be done to get him back in this game?
I mean, I love Illidan. I think the hero needs more base HP. I think the hero is just a little bit too squishy. But I think Illidan is a scary hero to overbalance, right? Because Illidan was a reign of terror for like a year and a half at the start of Heroes of the Storm, because his numbers were just tweaked a little bit too high. He had unstoppable frames. I would love if they brought back an unstoppable frame. So what that basically means is, like, when you Q to someone, you could use that to dodge skill shots. I think it'd be cool if they brought one back and then maybe like reduce his health a little bit, because it would be a buff if you're really good at the hero, but could make it so that the hero would be less like overpowered in lower ranks, if that makes sense. Because I think if you raise the hero stats too much, he'll just like run over people that don't have coordinated play. Because Illidan's a hero that if the opponent isn't coordinated, like, it's really difficult to, and by coordinated, I mean like they stun ETC slide, they have like an insta follow up, and their whole team is like chaining CC well. Yeah, I think if they don't have that, it's hard. So I would like to see them bring back an unstoppable frame for Illidan.
That's a cool idea. My immediate, and this is an opinion that I think has been ingrained from me by Reddit. So it's not my opinion. I feel kind of bad that I have this opinion now because I don't feel like it's mine. But what about people who don't know? Where are they going to find out about invincible frames? Like, you go to a Dark Souls Reddit, and like, how do I beat this darn game? And they're like, well, you're invincible when you do X. And you're like, what? I can be invincible in Dark Souls? Are you serious? How do I do this? Well, you see at the end of a certain roll with a certain weapon, and it's just too much.
I wonder if they could add it to like the description, right? So like the description of the talent, just basically say like, well, moving through your queue, you are unstoppable. So basically CC doesn't affect you. But I think that's a really valid point, Kyle. Like, I think that's a really, really valid point. And if that's something they don't have a plan for, maybe it wouldn't be worth bringing back unstoppable frames, and maybe just giving him a little bit more damage and a little bit more HP would be an easier solution that would accomplish the same thing.
I'm always interested in bringing back things that were removed in the past, because it was one of the really exciting things that started happening, I guess almost 2 years ago, like when we started seeing like Rhaegar being able to heal himself again with Ancestral and the like, things that were at one point it seemed overpowered, but then when we stop and kind of look at the landscape of the game and how it has evolved, we kind of go, well, is it that bad? Could we give this back to the hero? Is it actually going to be as OP as it once was?
Well, I'm curious about healing reduction, which has become a really big play in the CCL. Not only things like Ana classically, but Deckard with Emerald has ended up being this counter play, particularly to all the Brightwing, because there's a bit of a sparkle when she's coming in. Get ready for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think healing reduction would be difficult for Illidan as well. I like healing reduction. I think it's a good way to stop double support meta from, taking over because, I think healing reduction on anyone is a really, really good thing.
Ooh, I wasn't really thinking that way, but
Is that crazy?
Yeah, no, I like that. It's another knob to tune, right? Like Illidan is so betrayed and so angry that taking X talents or playing X way or being midair decreases the healing you would receive during that time. What we have, Gul'dan is really the only one I can think of that does it to himself.
Yeah, because no one really does it to themselves. I think it'd be cool. Like maybe he had, if you hit 5 autos on someone, it's like it stacks up or something. Like I think something like that could be pretty cool. And I think it wouldn't be that broken. Does that make sense? Like it would just make him a counter that you could pick that would be a melee assassin to double support compositions. Which I think would be cool. Maybe I don't know. I would have to figure out how they tweak it, but any buffs to Illidan would make me really happy. Also, Kerrigan. Kerrigan's kind of good right now, but I'm a big melee assassin player. So like Maev's, Kerrigan's, Sonya's. I mean, she's kind of a bruiser, but like Illidan's, like those heroes, I feel like if they got a little bit more HP, it'd put them more on par with a lot of the offlane heroes. Because I feel like you go.
Well, wait a minute. Because if we're touching 22 heroes, 10 of those, I think off the top of my head, could be melee assassins because they've been getting their lunch eaten by the bruiser updates.
Yep.
That was something we talked about last week.
Maybe that is it. Kyle, I like that. That would make me really happy.
Idea.
Just going to be the big melee assassin update of January 2021.
Kira's fine.
Oh
yes,
my gosh.
Leave Kira alone. Save Rexars, leave Kira alone.
I mean, I would love that personally. I mean, again, I'm a melee assassin player, but I feel like it would bring some of those flashier plays to the game, right? Because I think that melee assassins generally play a bit flashier, right? They're trying to dive into the back line, kind of one-shot someone. And personally, I think the game's really fun when it's played that way. I think double bruiser's fun as well, but it's a bit slower. Like it's a bit beefier, a bit slower. And I like when there's a place for both, but I feel like right now the double bruiser meta is really just like a lot stronger just because they're a lot tankier, have a lot more self-sustain.
Well, and the lane clear, which seems to be the issue in a number of ways. There's some fascinating things in the game design. I think Imperia is such a great example of somebody who just can't lane clear. So we took him and made him a main tank. And we're like, oh, this guy's great. I can't wait to run more of this. What are we going to do to back him up? Well, let's do another bruiser who can lane clear. Oh, and everything
Problem
falls into
solved.
place. Yeah.
Or even I've seen people run Imperius as like the melee assassin role. Like they'll put Imperius in the main lane or the 4-man, have a main tank and have an offlaner. So it's just like these 3 beefy bruisers because Imperius does so much damage. Like he literally, if he hits his full combo on you, you're going from 100% HP to like 20% HP. And that's really powerful in like a melee assassin role as well. So, maybe that's a hero a little bit running back or like earlier in the pod. That's a hero I would like to see nerfed a little bit because I think Imperius is a little bit too strong.
Yeah, they've done tiny little walkbacks on him at the end of last year, but it was really guarded. Like it wasn't a big stroke of a change. I have not run against what you just described with an Imperius and a 4-man with an actual tank. That sounds terrifying. I do not want to play against that.
Yeah, as long as you have wave clear, it's like really strong. So if you get like a mage with it, guys, this is some special advice for you at home. That way you can, terrorize your Storm League games. Pick Imperius, have a mage with you like a Jaina. Jaina blizzards the wave, and then you just kill everything. It'll be great, I promise.
That sounds like Braxis Hell facing that down. That's what that sounds like. I don't want to fight on that point.
Yep.
No, thank you. I'm gonna bounce the question to you, Kyle. Is there anything you're hoping kind of gets some help? You've been talking a little bit about Deathwing's underused form.
Yeah,
Is that still a pet project? Something you're championing?
I would love to hang out in Worldbreaker more, but I think we've kind of landed on a Q build being the way to go, and that works no matter where you are. So I'm doing okay there. Honestly, for my own project sense, I don't want them to touch Chen, because I think that's my next big go.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I support this. I want to play with a Chen, so learn Chen.
Yeah, well, he can get back there. He can get a lot done. It's like Urel with half the work, if I learn it correctly. I do love my Urel. I hope she's not going anywhere. I highly expect that, they're not going to touch her up. You all know my hopes about Mal'Ganis being viable. That'd be a blast, but he's just countered by ETC. And what are you going to do when ETC's your counter, but just not play it ever?
Yeah, it's pretty true. I was going to ask you, Kyle, with Chen, which ult have you been running, or like what build are you running with your Chen, or are you still trying to figure that out?
I'm still figuring out. Yeah,
I love Chen. I think that hero is awesome.
Oh, hook me up, because I can do a flying kick build because I'm a Dota player and I like right clicking people. But beyond that, I have no idea what I'm doing in there.
Well, I think flying kick is great. Just going Storm, Earth, and Fire. I think that ult is so strong. Just the triple pandas, because you jump in and once you get low health, you use your ult, and then it's like you have a full new health bar that you can use to just fight people. So that was the one thing I say is just I think Storm, Earth, Fire is so strong.
Awesome.
You look mischievous, Kyle.
I always like it. Like when you're, maybe you're streaming like I did yesterday, Ragnaros, and you're like, I haven't played Ragnaros in a while. I think I'm going to do Blast Wave build. And everyone's like, yeah, Blast Wave's great. Oh, you should Blast Wave. And I'm like, thank goodness. The easy to do one is the good one. I've got this.
It's a good ability. I mean, Keg is just hard. Like, I don't know. I've always tried Keg, and I feel like I always roll people the wrong way. Does that happen to anyone else?
Oh, yeah. The bounce it can be tragic. I know what it feels like on the enemy side. I know what I could be doing, and you just get silenced, and it's not right, and you're dazed, and it's just the best thing for the enemy Chen. But I'm down with the Storm, Earth, and Fire. I want to just destroy a real quick Jane and get out of there.
I like that. I'm surprised Greymane's not on your mind, Kyle. You've been playing so much Greymane.
Oh, the Greymane has been my learn to assassin on that account character. And I think he's great at macro and then showing up for team fights and delivering. But as you and I have been queuing together and we're now reaching the top of plat on those accounts, I don't think he does the macro better than other folks. And that team fight starts to wane as people stop making the egregious mistakes they were. So in that account, thinking, well, let's go Tychus. Like, let's just... Everyone's starting to get aware. Plat 1, Plat 2. People know how to draft decently. They're about camps. Maybe you have a Sonya who's super into it. And we don't need that crutch, perhaps, is the best way to say it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be your Sonya. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Especially the one we faced down at lunch today. I'm like, I'd rather be the Sonya than fight against that. That was painful.
Well, what about we've been kind of deciding which drums we're going to beat over the next year. We want to pressure the devs to get certain things done. Last year I was going on about Cassie and it happened, so I felt pretty proud of myself.
Let's call it politely requesting instead of pressuring. I like that better.
Okay. Armchair designing, but we're aware that we're likely wrong and don't understand everything about game design.
There you go. There's the...
Where is there a world anywhere, Udall, where we can put a Zagara?
That is an interesting, because she used to be an offlaner, and I think in the current meta she doesn't work in offlane, so you have to run her in the 4-man. Like you've been like, so in CCL people have been running Zagara for her Roach talent. So basically you go Roaches at 1, Roaches at 7, and then the 16 you get % damage. So they've been using it as like a counter to the heavy bruiser meta, but I think she needs a little more damage and like, or maybe like make her movement speed on creep a little faster, because I feel like she just gets chased down and ran down a little bit, right? So maybe instead of, I think is it 20% or 30% for when she's on creep? Maybe tweak it up an extra 10%. I feel like something like that could help her get out of a lot of those situations where, like a Vala can just vault, a Leeming can just blink. I think if she had a little bit more ability, that probably will help out. Because I actually think Zagara's ult's pretty strong. Like Devouring Maw is really impactful. And then with the like Roach build, she does have a decent amount of damage. So I think a little bit more mobility would enable that hero.
I've always wanted to be able to like tell my Roaches what to attack. Like kind of like what they did way back in the day with Gazlow's turrets, where they were like, all right, Gazlow's damage is great, but it's random. Like you're going to look good on the board, but you're not actually securing kills. I'd like to see that happen with roaches on Zag. You're right, by the way, it is 20% because on creep her attack range also is increased by 20%. So it's 20/20 when you're on creep as Zag. That was my old like one trick. I loved Zagara, but I barely.
I love that roaches change. I would say if you could control roaches, I think that would be a really good change as well. So I even more fun than just being a little bit faster. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, we played so long. Like I remember when Zagara hit, and it was just like, wait, you can just move faster all the time if you're meticulous with your creep, but everyone knows to clear the creep now. It takes so long to spread out. Like 20% doesn't feel like a big enough reward for managing your tumors correctly. I like that. I'm down for either of those suggestions.
How about both of them? We'll just make Zagara really good. I'm a Zerg player in StarCraft, so like any Zerg player or Zerg characters in Heroes of the Storm just have. I grew up playing them in a different game.
Yeah. Well, let's take some questions for you because we got a lot. We got quite a few questions sent in for you, and quite a few folks want to talk about HGC, talking about CCL. And so one of the questions we got, Valkymer, regular writer into this here podcast, said, other than your own, is there one CCL org that you look at and say, wow, I love how they do this? And Valk also wants to know what this is.
Yeah. That's a good question. I really like crowd control. Well, I mean, I like all the orgs. I think all the orgs are doing unique things. One thing that came to mind, I really like, so basically crowd control, that's Turk's organization. I think they do a really good job at like engaging and memeing with the community. Like I think their meme game's on point, and that's something that I think is really important. Maybe that's a weird thing to admire, but like it's not easy to do. Like as far as their content creation goes, I feel like they have really good content of creating like an engaging, meaningful memes that like gets their community engaged. I think Wildheart also does it pretty well with like Twitter, where they put like a lot of graphics out of their players on heads. And I think that's something that 30K hasn't done very good about. So it's like I look at both of them and admire that.
I find that so. I really like that you mentioned that because it's something we don't talk a lot about. But we don't really talk about like the business side of Heroes esports all that often. But like that type of branding and marketing, that's like really important. And that's something that's kind of goes into all kinds of other different necks of the woods. And it's something that makes me think of like how the like music and music artist industry has changed over the years, because we're so much more about solo artists these days. And it's just like if they're good at marketing and like playing the social media game, they're finding success. If you're just like another band just putting albums out, it's not really working right now.
Yeah, TikTok is the way that like a bunch of artists are getting found. And they'll just have like a single go viral on TikTok, and then all of a sudden they have like, hundreds of thousands of monthly listeners. And it's like
all of a sudden
we're all changing everything, man.
All of a sudden we're all talking about sea shanties.
Exactly. Sea shanties are trending. Here we are,
Yeah. I find that. Yeah, I really like that. That's where you went with that, because it's such an important part of like the identity game that teams and players and personalities is all about.
What was the overall organization experience like for CCL?
Well, a couple of thoughts. First, it was really, really hard. Like it has been a really difficult experience, and hard in the sense of like there's just a lot of things I've had to learn that I had no idea how to do. Right, like trying to figure out how to do merchandise, print merchandise, do fulfillment, like try to build a website. You got to figure out how to like build a team. Got to figure out how to like build an org. It's just been a lot of things that I didn't have. Because my experience in the past was I was a pro player and I was a streamer and content creator. So I hadn't really delved that much into the business side of esports, and it's been just a lot of learning on the job, and a lot of mistakes, a lot of trial and error. And I think the hardest part has been like trying to navigate my own perfectionism and trying to be okay with being like, hey, Michael, everything's not going to turn out how you want it to, but it's like, it's all just stepping stones and building blocks to make the organization, make the Heroes of the Storm, like CCL better. But the org experience, I think CCL has been amazing to work with. Like they have been really, they kind of interact with us, ask us a lot of questions. We vote on a lot of things for the league. Like I think the way that they've set up the org and basically the tournament organizer relationship, I think is really, really good. But yeah, being an org has been hard, but like really fulfilling and fun. So I love it. Like yeah.
No, that sounds something that is easily like, he might run a Excel spreadsheet or two. The players play. What else is there to it?
Yeah, we got a question in chat. We're going to go with Murda RG is how I'm going to choose to pronounce this. Says they want to know about CCL academies and their importance in proliferating the overall pro scene.
Yeah, so I mean, Murda kind of talking about the path to pro, right? So I think the path to pro is one of the most important things to have a successful esports scene. You need people to feel like they could one day, play in CCL or, play in whatever the highest league is. And I feel like academy teams are a very like important part of that process. And I think academy teams, especially with, it's academy teams in conjunction with like NGS, Heroes Lounge, like these other basically, let's call them amateur tournaments that people are able to compete in. I think that those are very important to a successful like esports scene because you need people, you need a Masters player that wants to try and be a professional Heroes of the Storm player, or at least compete. You need them to have an avenue and you need them to have a path that they can visually see to get there, because otherwise people aren't going to try. And if people don't try, then it's like the well of talent, disappears. And if that happens, then it's like you no longer have a successful esports scene that is engaging. So I think the academy teams play a really crucial role in that, in the sense that, for me, like, we had 30K Black, which is our academy team. And that basically allowed me to kind of scout new talent for like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen for CCL2 as far as like the format. But, if I have to pick up new players, like maybe I'd look at some of these people or I have a better understanding of who I feel like I could pair them with to make a successful team. So I think academy teams are really important. I think the amateur scene is really important. And I hope CCL does something to like work with them or, make something work that would have an amateur paired with the pro.
I like that. I haven't thought about that in a little while, but you're bringing it up. And like the other competitive scene that I follow somewhat closely is Hearthstone. And I think that's something that really has hurt it. On top of moving to YouTube, that's its own thing that's been beaten to death. And I'm not going to get into that, but they've really reduced how much the ladder in that game feeds into their pro circuit. It's still kind of there, but nowhere near what it used to be. And it used to be a kind of a big selling point. It was easy to get excited about it. 'Cause it's like, oh damn, these like X amount of players are here in these playoffs because they just played a lot of Hearthstone and did well on the ladder. And that's just taken a really reduced capacity in recent years. I think to the scene's detriment. So that's interesting. Moving along, we got some other questions, kind of out of the CCL experience. Folks wanting to know what you would like to see out of BlizzcOnline.
Wait, what's BlizzcOnline? I might know it by different name.
It's the delayed BlizzCon that's happening online only next month.
Okay, gotcha. As far as what would I like to see for like Heroes of the Storm or for like esports with Blizzard, or kind of both?
It was unspecified, but I mean, if you've got hopes for it, either way.
I mean, I mean, so if we're daydreaming, right? I would love if they come out and said like, CCL is a league that we love. That being said, I don't think that's going to happen, right? But that would be really cool. I mean, I would like them to focus more on the game, right? Like we're kind of doing the thing with CCL and like Heroes Lounge, and people are throwing tournaments. I would like them to come out and announce that they're going to put more development into the game, and not necessarily even a crazy amount, but like it would be encouraging to know that they had more content coming up, right? Like basically giving us confirmation that, hey, we're still putting development and money into this game. We still care about this game, because I think the community would really appreciate that. And I think we deserve that, because no one deserves, I don't think people like are entitled to things, but like, I think we would be really eager for it and we would, enjoy that. So I think that would be the biggest thing that I would like to come out of BlizzCon, is just more security around that there is going to be more content and patches and hero releases in the future.
Oh, that's very important. I mean, we saw a mini version of that yesterday. A single, 3-sentence comment on Reddit takes queue times from 10 minutes, 20 minutes, down to 6, down to 3, just because people went, oh yeah, oh good, there's investment here. I'm going to keep playing.
Yeah, that's what we see. What I wonder about is what Blizzard sees, like how much of that translates into like additional income for the game.
Well, they did do something weird yesterday, or maybe it was 2 days ago now, but they followed 30K on Twitter. And, we can get a little conspiracy theory about this, but it is interesting that someone even touched that account and is going about gathering people.
Yeah, so the Heroes Esport account on Twitter, like the verified, like 50,000 followers, followed 30K. And I checked their tweets, and their most recent tweet was they retweeted the CCL playoffs. They basically like announced like, hey, the CCL playoffs are coming up. These are the 4 teams. So, I mean, I agree with you. We shouldn't get conspiracy and we shouldn't like catch or count our eggs before they hatch. But I do think this is a positive sign for Heroes because someone got on that account. Someone made the choice to follow, 30K, and some other people like Bahamut, one of the casters for CCL. He also got a follow, and they probably did a couple other people. It's just exciting to see that they see us, they see what we're doing, and it seems like they're, they enjoy it and they want more of it. At least, that's my perception, but also I'm biased, right? Like I'm a part of the league. I of course it's in my interest if they support us. So.
Yeah. I appreciate you, mentioning that you have a personal stake, obviously, but like at the same time, it's like, I think like the league has earned the right to kind of be excited and to kind of think about, potential like more direct partnerships or endorsement, right? Because like there's been other leagues before this, but what I see, because we've been doing this podcast all along, we didn't take a break, is like I've never seen the community rally around like one tournament the way they have the CCL. So it's just it does seem to have hit kind of a new level and have hit at the right time. And I can't help but think of like what happened with StarCraft 2's esports, because they retired WCS, but they're like, hey, we're partnering with DreamHack, we're partnering with these other programs to keep a league going that like has Blizzard's blessing but isn't as like directly produced by Blizzard Entertainment.
Yeah, because I think there are a lot of people that are like, Blizzard's never going to do it. Like, look what they did at HGC. Blizzard's incentives are in line to have a successful esports scene, especially if it doesn't cost them a lot of money or upkeep, right? Exactly what you're talking about with the StarCraft 2 mentioned. They stopped WCS, but they partner with a couple other people to keep running esports. Because esports, it causes hype around the league, which causes more people to play the game, which causes more people to spend money, right? Which means Blizzard is making money and they're happy about that. So if CCL is doing a lot of the work of, creating the tournament, and Blizzard is like, hey, we have these marketing channels that will throw your way, and maybe at some point down the line, like, I'm a dreamer. I would love at some point down the line if like a CCL finals was at a BlizzCon. Like that would be like mission accomplished, dream come true. Is that ever going to happen? I don't know. I have no idea, but I do think Blizzard's incentives are aligned to want a successful esports. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. They want a successful esports scene, right? Like if they can get it and it not be a lot of upkeep, that is something that I think has benefit for them. And I think they know that. I mean, they're putting a lot of money into like Overwatch League. You look at what they're doing with their other titles. Like they know esports are important. And with HGC, I think it came down to they were spending way too much money and it wasn't making them as much back, right? And I think the way that they pulled the plug with HGC, I think was terrible. I think the way that they handled it, I thought was really, really bad. But like from a business decision for them, I don't know what their books looked like, but HGC, I think, cost them a lot of money, and I don't think it was giving them a return that they were spending, right? And maybe they could figure out a system with CCL or some other, organizer within Heroes of the Storm where they don't have as much of the upkeep, they don't have as much of the time investment and, the people investment, and they can still run a, successful league, and maybe that's my optimism. Again, guys, I'm biased. I want this, but, I look at what they're doing in other games, and I don't think it's that far-fetched to believe that at some point Blizzard might step in and want to be a part of Heroes of the Storm esports.
I agree. I agree very strongly. I have nothing to add. Like, Yeah, I feel the same way about that. And like it's I don't know. There's so much of this too. There's so many lines to draw, right? Like we keep talking about the StarCraft thing, but like with a lot of the Chinese and Korean leagues that feed into the other Blizzard run tournaments, like it's still pretty hands off from Blizzard. It's still done by organizations in South Korea and in China. I mean, GSL and StarCraft 2 never stopped just being their own production. But it's still fed in, even when it was WCS and StarCraft 2. You know, GSL was still its own kind of unique thing that handled its own production and handled its own league, even though it fed directly into WCS. And I just find that fascinating, and it's also because that this is where my bias comes in. Kyle and I, that's where we started making content. We were covering StarCraft, and so it's just like, well, it's still there and it's still going strong, even though like straight development for that game has basically ceased.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I find the situation interesting, particularly with the Bahamut follow. That to me says there is again, conspiracy theory, of course, we're reading into this for fun, a level of trust in a caster. Yeah. And often one of the big counterpoints to any sort of revival of a scene where Blizzard directly doesn't control it is that they're scared, that there's a chance that something will happen on those streams that they do not like, that affects their bottom line. Seems sometimes silly when you think about their bottom line has been affected by themselves most recently with things like Diablo Immortal announcements and all that. But we've seen things like StarCraft be given away to these ancient leagues, these oldest time, 20 years ago, people played this video game and organizations made themselves a name. But CCL is doing that. They're building that trust. These organizations are starting to showcase that they can manage players correctly. Interviews and comms are clean enough for the audience to understand and want to participate in. And I think we can reach that goal. It's more so, are they willing to take that chance after there's not the WoW money behind it, which there can't simply be because it's not a subscription-based game. Which of course brings us to our big next kind of idea is how do they make that monetization go? And lots of people say battle pass.
Yeah, it's one of the questions we got. It's like, what would you think about I think it was Dax, who some of us know from wonderful memes on Twitter, but wanted to know if that's what if we think that's even the realm of possibility for being announced at BlizzConline.
I mean, I don't know. Like again, guys, I am in the dark just like everyone else with this, right? So when I'm talking, this is me just speculating and talking about what I wish. Like, I think probably timeline-wise, I would be surprised if they announced it at this upcoming BlizzCon. But like, that's just because I think we've only seen one season of CCL, and I think Blizzard is the type of company that they'd want to see a couple seasons to know it's not like a one-off, fluke, right? They want you to prove that like, hey, like you're the real deal. You can do this for a couple of seasons. Like give it some time. And I think if that happens, right, like maybe the end of this year, or maybe again, these timelines are completely just created in Michael's brain, but like, who knows, maybe the end of this year, they look at it and are like, hey, they've done a good year of work. Like maybe let's work with them. Like that for me, again, I don't know what the internal conversations are like with Blizzard or the conversations between CCL and Blizzard. Like if, but that would be my assumption is that, they would probably want some extended period of time to like check it out. So I would be surprised if we saw some CCL announcement at BlizzCon, but maybe, who knows, maybe next BlizzCon, there is something. And, my dream would be sprays, skins, mounts, some sort of battle pass in game. I mean, I love what Dota does with the compendium. I think it's a really, really cool system. I think it is beneficial for all parties, right? Like it's beneficial for players because, there's more money in the scene, beneficial for organizations because they get their skins in the scene, beneficial for fans and viewers, right? Because you get more content for the game, beneficial for the publisher, beneficial to the tournament. It feels like if they did it correctly, right, if they put the proper resources towards it, I feel like it could be something that would be mutually beneficial for all parties, which is what I think you want, right? Like that's what you need to have a successful scene that can continue for multiple years.
Well, and crowdsourcing, that's how Dota does all this. Like the organizations make the PNG images that become the sprays, and we don't have to get someone on staff to do that. And from what we hear from Blizzard artists, particularly those working on Heroes, it can be kind of crazy seeming. Like they've got their hard deadline for the thing they have to do, the thing that is part of the upcoming box set that is a winter event. And then all the side, Brew loves Cho'Gall so much he makes an entirely new Cho'Gall skin. Just so because he knows people want it. I still believe fully that he is working on a BFA Jaina. It's just that everything keeps piling up and on that one guy to get that stuff done. Of course, he would, if he's listening, please, I know it's not one guy, it's a whole team, and you got other people that do the animations, all that. So yeah, I respect everybody, please. But that sort of crazy Wild West crowd sourcing that we saw from Dota doesn't feel that crazy anymore, particularly in an age of Twitch where everyone gets their emotes verified and things like Fiverr, even, where if you need an overlay done, you can get it.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that's the thing is, I think there needs to be like a proper distribution of responsibility, right? And I think the organization, a lot of their responsibility falls on, doing overlays, creating, PNGs, things like that for Blizzard, their art team wouldn't have to create all the logos and brands. Like, it wouldn't be like Overwatch League, right? Because from my understanding, Overwatch League, Blizzard worked with people to basically create a lot of new brands and logos. And for them, it'd be more of like, hey, I just send over our, branding guide, and then Blizzard has all the information they need. And it's at that point, just like importing it in and making sure that it translates well, which is a lot less hours than creating a brand from scratch. So again, this is my optimism. This is, I would gain from this. But I really don't think it's that out of the realm of possibility. I think that we realistically in the next couple of years could see something like that. And I think that'd be really cool for the Heroes of the Storm scene to go from, the depths of we lost HGC to like, look, we got skins and esports again within Heroes of the Storm. And more than anything, I would really love if Blizzard did some sort of Heroes of the Dorm or collegiate event again, because that's where I got my start. I know a lot of pro players, that's where they got their start. And I think it introduced a lot of people to esports. Like, that really would be, if I could dream for anything at this upcoming BlizzCon announcement, it'd be that they announce some sort of Heroes of the Dorm, even if it's not the same scale and scope, but some sort of scholarship that works with, college, just because I think it was a really cool system.
I mean, we were talking a little bit off air before we flipped the stream on, kind of about that and your history and I was saying, and I'll repeat it now here for podcast listeners to hear, is like, there's 2 times in my life family members have messaged me to be like, yo, what is this esports thing? One was, what was it, 8-9 months ago now, when racing had to go to virtual racing, and they started broadcasting video game racing because there was the only option to get your NASCAR fix. The only other time it happened was Heroes of the Dorm on ESPN. I was getting multiple texts from different family members just like, what is, all I know is this is from Blizzard and Garrett does that. Let me get a prompter from him. And it wasn't like, get this crap off my TV. It's like, whoa, what is this? This is interesting. Explain to me why I should care. And I did. Sat there watching Dorm, texting my family on the rules of the game. And that was just so cool. On top of the fact that, like, damn, it was just a slick production. Like, it was just so watchable. And it's just where, like, almost everyone I know that like has a passion for Heroes esports, it's where a lot of them got on board. Was Dorm. So there's a lot. There's just a lot of goodwill that comes out of collegiate esports.
Yeah. And I think it creates a really cool path to pro, kind of like what we were talking about with academy teams too. I think for a lot of people, they play in Dorm, they get the taste for competition, they get taste for, competing in a high level competitive team, and they want more of it. And guess what? There's a lot of opportunities for that within the Heroes of the Storm community right now with like Heroes Lounge, NGS. And, I think it would just be cool to have more of those, especially if there was an avenue that was, kind of ran by Tespa and Blizzard. So, I mean, I can beat that dead horse forever. I love Dorm. I would love if they did something with collegiate. I just think it'd be really good for the game and good for esports as a whole. Because exactly what you were talking about, I had a lot of people reach out to me that had no idea what esports or gaming was. And they were like, hey, tell me about it. I want to understand. I want to know. And I think it's just a good like brand awareness for gamers in general.
Well, what about the player side of BlizzCon? What would you like to see in terms of heroes, maybe map updates? Is there anything in the rules you feel like, well, we need another healer, another tank?
I think maps right now need to be tweaked. I think Volskaya Foundry, I think the Protector needs to be changed in some way. Maybe make it similar to Infernal Shrines, that once you capture it, it just runs down the lane. Because the nature of having to put 2 people into the Protector, makes it so that a lot of times people can just dive past it and kill your heroes. So I feel like maybe tweaking that map a little bit. I feel like there are some really good maps, and I feel like a lot of the core mechanics are good. The numbers maybe just need to be tweaked a little bit. Or maybe, like, I like new maps, I'll be honest. And I don't know if it's the best for the game. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I like when they bring new maps in and have us try new things. Because that's part of, for me, like, when Kyle and I were talking about those puzzle pieces earlier, right? That's part of the puzzle for me is like, okay, how do I rotate on this new map? What's the most efficient way? So I always love seeing new maps implemented into the game, just because I think it's a cool, unique MOBA thing that only really Heroes of the Storm has. Most other MOBAs, it's just one map.
What about the ones we've kind of moved on from? Like they're still there, but they're not in Storm League. Like how do you feel about the recent addition of tunnels to Warhead Junction? Do you miss Haunted Mines? Is there any love for Blackheart still hanging around?
Listen, I really liked Haunted Mines, and I actually think Haunted Mines is pretty cool. Like, I think bringing Haunted Mines back to, and maybe that's the solution. Maybe instead of new maps, you just tweak some of the old maps and, give them reworks, which is what they've been trying to do. But I mean, I personally, I think Blackheart's Bay is a little bit just fundamentally broken because of the mechanic. So the thing about collecting coins is if you're ahead, you're not really advantaged to ever fight. You should just keep collecting coins. So like at the highest level, I don't necessarily love that map, but I think Haunted Mines with its tunnel mechanic, I think is really cool. And I would love if it got, maybe a little bit of work on and then was brought back into like the rank play. Because I think that map was one of the reasons that I fell in love with Heroes of the Storm. Like fundamentally, it was just like one of my favorite maps, and I would love to see it come back into the pool.
I miss that being the only battleground, I think, in the history of the game where I felt like the entire player base knew rotations. They knew the timings for the camps. They knew exactly the strategy to employ and the counter strategy to employ if you get on the back foot. And I don't think there's been a single map since where we're all just, we know exactly when to do X, Y, and Z.
Well, it's funny when you think about like a 2-lane map in this game, because that does happen. Braxis, we do objective and then we all camp pretty religiously. We've got Hanamura, where everyone starts pinging the same, right? Might not get done, but everyone's pinging it.
We all have the same hopes and dreams on Hanamura, is what you're saying.
You remove one lane from the map and everyone's an expert all of a sudden on rotations.
That's true, actually.
I thought about it that way.
Because BOE, most people do that camp too. Like most people do the camp on BOE as well. Maybe two-lane maps are the future.
Could be. I mean, it's certainly the future for me in May, because I hate managing a backline that has multiple directions to go. But in a 2-lane map, I know exactly where they're going to be and where to put my Blizzard. So that's where I run her.
I have a soft spot for 2-lane maps. I like them.
But I want to poke you a little bit about the Volskaya, because that's an interesting idea that it could become automated. Do you think that it would work? For more information, like it's such a weird map in that we immediately run to certain lanes. The Triglav is kind of like our Genji Medivh problems. You put 2 pro players in there, it's a waste of them. It's not worth their skills, but you put 2 golds and bronzes in there and hey, they're more powerful than they'd ever be.
No, that's true. And that's where I think maybe making it where it does just run down the map, maybe that would help solve that. And maybe you could do something where one person can hop in and out. Like maybe you make it like that. And I don't know how that would necessarily work. Maybe that'd be weird, but maybe it'd be, similar to Cho'Gall, except the Cho is run by the AI and you get to be the Gall. And maybe this is too far out there, but like, and you could go in and activate the shield and use the normal gunner abilities, but you still would have the ability to jump in and out. I just think requiring 2 people to be in there, I think that's the issue. I think if one person was in, it would work out better.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. The idea that you get in there and the AI just starts gunning and shooting and you're just walking around being this big robot. I like that.
It's just you, just the robot versus the world,
Yeah.
One or no pilots is just where my brain's been with that since we started talking about the ineffectiveness of the objectives.
Well, and that's due to CCL. Like, I think it was opening weekend nearly. They drove it in and used it as basically a turret, a summon to tank a keep. And it was terribly disappointing, ultimately fascinating, but ever since then, it's just been glaring about this issue.
Yeah, I think it was Crowd Control that did that too. And I remember I was watching that game and I was like, I mean, it's smart of them, right? Like, cool adaptation by the players, but also like kind of sucks that like you get ejected and it just becomes a glorified keep, a tank. Like, so I don't know the best way to change that. Again, maybe they could have two people go in and they just tweak the numbers, or maybe make a couple different abilities. That works as well. But I think they need to do something to the Protector on that map. Like I like the Garden of Terror rework. I think Garden of Terror is a pretty good map. So that's one where like I think they've proven that they can rework maps and make them, fun and competitive. So it's like, maybe they look at Haunted Mines a little bit. Like that just personally, I feel like that map has so much legacy within the game. Like that, I think it'd be really cool to bring it back. And I think people would enjoy that, right? Like you would get that nostalgia of I'm playing on Haunted Mines again. Like should I push with my golem or defend their golem? The age old question.
Do you have any heroes that aren't in the game yet that you'd like to see? Or did your time in Dota and other MOBAs introduce you to a hero style you'd like to see?
Well, the answer. I love illusion heroes. So like I loved Terrorblade and Naga Siren and Phantom Lancer in Dota 2. So they're all illusion based. I liked Arc Warden as well. I think an Arc Warden style hero would be really cool. So for those of you that don't know, so Arc Warden, basically the ultimate creates a perfect copy of you. And you have it for like 15 or 20 seconds. It can use all your abilities. So basically you can swap between two different heroes. You have two different QWEs. I think something like that would be really cool. That being said, I don't know how you'd balance it necessarily that well in Heroes of the Storm, but I think something like that could be really cool. There'd be like a pseudo mage that could create a clone of himself that could also, or themselves that could also use a bunch of spells. Like I love illusions. I love micro.
Yeah. I've wanted a haunt for a while from Spectre.
Yeah.
We don't have, it's mirror. It's like a Warcraft mirror image mage seems like ripe for the picking. Like it's such a classic ability from Warcraft.
Like a Khadgar maybe would take up that role.
Yeah, I mean, hell, it's a spell with Jaina art in Hearthstone. So, yeah, it's a real classic Warcraft mage ability. So just. It's just now hitting me that it's a little weird. I guess Chromie kind of leaves echoes behind.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit
kind of that way, I guess.
Yeah.
You don't get to kill him, though.
A little bit of Chromie, a little bit of Samuro, maybe blend that together, see what you find.
I mean, you can make it so that if they kill the clone, they could get XP, like half the XP for a hero. That way it like doesn't get abused. Turn it into something where it's a little bit like Rexar's Misha. Where it's
interesting.
Where it becomes more of like a permanent illusion. Yeah, I love mages. I love casters. I think some sort of like we haven't seen a new mage in a while, unless who's the last mage? Was it Ming or it was Orphea?
Yeah, my God.
Wow, yeah. No, wait, no, Mephisto.
Was Mephisto before or after?
Mephisto was after Orphea?
I think so. Right? I'm going to the website.
I'm definitely Googling in the background.
The interwebs.
And trying to keep my internet or keep my keyboard clacking quiet. Chat room saying Mephisto was before Orphea, which is how I remember it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, so we had Hogger, May, Deathwing, Kira, Anduin, Imperius, and then Orphea. Yeah.
Okay.
Give me my maid!
Yeah, you know what? I think room here, right? We got Raynor got that big ol' update. Cassia's doing all right. So we've got some sustain who's been bouncing up and down. I don't know how much you can really do to make a new Raynor for the game either. People don't seem horribly interested in Val at the moment.
No, yeah. Well, we had that hot second where it looked like we were all going to be double supporting again. But we pulled out of that pretty quickly.
Thank goodness,
Yeah, I that's a meta I don't. I will endure another 2 years of this double bruiser meta before I think I would want to consider going back to a double support meta, double healer. Now that they changed the terms.
That's a good point by the chat. The Tassadar update was a full sort of art redo.
That's true.
That is
majory.
And a really successful one, I think.
Yeah.
That's
I like new tasks a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. But no, I think there's plenty of. It sure seems like there's room for a new mage. I like the idea of mirror image. You got me. You were talking about your love for Zerg. You got me thinking that I can't believe we haven't gotten a high micro Zerg hero yet. Like, why? This game is built on the StarCraft 2 engine. How am I not box selecting Zerglings and moving them around?
Could be like an aberration, and you just like all your abilities are summons.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you everybody for your questions. By the way, if you haven't listened before and you want to write in, itncast@gmail.com is the place to do so. Or if you want to tune in live, head on over to twitch.tv/amovetv and just hang out here with us and chat with us in the chat room. But I think that's where we're going to wrap this episode up. Michael Udall, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great getting to know you and talking to you about your hopes and your dreams for Heroes of the Storm and Heroes of the Storm esports. If our listeners are somehow unaware of where they can find you, where can everyone find your stuff?
You can find me. It's just Michael_Udall on Twitter or Michael Udall on Twitch. Also, I'd really appreciate if you followed my esports organization. We're competing in CCL. It's 30K org everywhere. Kyle, Garrett, thank you both so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. It was really fun to be able to hop on and just, be able to talk about some Heroes of the Storm in the future and what's coming. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for having me. I love what you guys do in the Heroes of the Storm scene. So appreciate you guys.
Oh, rad, man. Well, it goes both ways. Thanks for making the time and spending almost 90 minutes here with us. Thank you also to our patrons for supporting us. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/ITN is the best way to do so. So go check that out and consider chipping in. Not required. Show's always going to be free. But we appreciate it if you give it a look. And a huge thanks to our patron producers, Declan H, Cheesy Bob, Chris K, Mike C, and Sean B. Thank you so much for the support, everyone. You can catch us live Thursdays, usually around 3 p.m. Eastern time, right here on twitch.tv/amovetv. You can, by the way, follow the show on Twitter to see exactly when we're going live at ITNcast. We'll also let you know about any schedule changes and new episodes dropping over there. But Kyle, there's more to you than just ITN. Where can everyone find your work?
Yes, you can find me a number of places. Everything can be found over at KyleFergusson.com. 2 S's in Fergusson. Find my streams over at twitch.tv/KyleFergusson. But this week, I bounce around a little bit. Let's do some Heroes Hearth, as we talked about that a lot today. Head on over to youtube.com/Heroes Hearth for the various, they call it Kyle Fergusson guides. Really, it's just me asking questions while other people answer them. They're more the players' guides that I get to do over there. A very cool system. Get to sit down with CCL players, go into the replay with them, and have them explain everything they're thinking about, why they did what they did, and why they picked what they did. Most recently, they put up Cure's Zeratul, which is an awesome look at how to not only learn his particular style, which is an insane basic attack and teleport style, but how to get good at it yourself. And he gives quite a bit of tips on how to get into Zeratul if you're interested. Coming up, I actually just did an interview yesterday with Simplicity Legacy, and that was a Deckard game. So if you're interested in learning some Deckard, check out and keep an eye on youtube.com/Heroes Hearth.
Nice. This podcast and every single other one that I produce can be found at amove.tv. That's AMOVE.tv. Just put up a new WoW killer this morning. If you want to hear me and Taliesin talk about dying over and over again in the twisting corridors in Torghast, you can hear that WoW killer available wherever podcasts can be found, and plenty others over at amove.tv. It's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Thank you again, Mike Udall, for hanging out with us. And until next time, everybody, good luck and have fun.
Take care.